What is up, you guys? Josh Yee here from Not Creators, and today I want to touch on a very specific topic. We're going to be looking through what I consider to be some of the top yo-yos of all time that left a really big influence on the yo-yo community going through at least modern yo-yo history. And when I say modern yo-yo history, I'm talking about the era from the big team high performance boom of 1998 until today, and really see what were some of the significant yo-yos that really pushed forward something innovative, started something new, started a new trend, and really helped push yo-yoing as a whole. Well, of course, every yo-yo created from this modern yo-yo era has a certain contribution that's made to the community. There are definitely some yo-yos that kind of stand out and really just are kind of have a level above some of the others that pushed our community forward, pushed trick development forward, and just really helped the community overall. We're going to be looking at some of those yo-yos today. We're not going to waste any more time. We're going to jump right into this list, and we're going to start off this list at number 10. Very significant yo-yo. We're going to talk about the Yo-Yo Jam Patriot. So Yo-Yo Jam, while it's a company that is currently defunct, it was one of the biggest companies in all of modern yo-yoing for quite a long time. And while they had a lot of yo-yos prior to the Patriot left a very important contribution to the yo-yo scene. The Patriot happened to be the very first yo-yo to ever use a size C bearing. That's right, the size C bearing that you see in literally almost every modern yo-yo today literally came from the contribution of the Patriot. The story goes that at the time, around the end of 2001 into 2002, a lot of players really wanted a budget-friendly plastic yo-yo design that was good for like higher performance tricks, but still kept budget in mind and really had like an all-around high performance package at an affordable cost. Equipped with the new size C bearing, which was kind of an experiment for Yo-Yo Jam, also with starburst response and a polycarbonate durable body, the Patriot ended up being a favorite for a lot of different players. A larger size bearing also meant a wider gap. This allowed certain tricks to kind of flow better, and people started really understanding just how this wide gap, wider bearing really just kind of helped yo-yo trick creation. Players like Wataru really helped push the popularity of the Patriot, as he was widely known for only using a Patriot, and his videos got very popular, pushing the boundaries of what trick creation could be in the 1A style of play. Really, if it weren't for Yo-Yo Jam introducing this size C bearing with the Patriot, we might not have ever had size C bearings as the standard for all of our yo-yos today. Next on the list, we're going to go to number 9. And this is a yo-yo that's very special and has a close place to my heart because it's one of the yo-yos that I collect the most of. This yo-yo is the Super Yo Renegade. Following the big era of Team High Performance's boom, there was a lot of things going on in the yo-yo community. And one of those things was that, for the most part, if you were a 1A player, you were kind of limited to only a couple yo-yos, and most of these yo-yos were, like very skinny gap. They had like really kind of a light feel to them, and Super Yo wanted to make something that was a little bit different. They wanted something that could be a little heavier and really allow players to start making some new kind of tricks. The Renegade's popularity really exploded at the end of 1999 into 2000, and a lot of players just found this yo-yo to be really different. It was heavier, it seemed like it flowed better, it allowed you to have longer technical combos, and a lot of players who were very good and really innovational at the time started using the Renegade exclusively. So all the videos that you saw circulating online, chances are they were using a Renegade. A lot of the tricks that you might consider to be foundational for learning yo-yoing were actually developed on the Super Yo Renegade. The Renegade also had an interesting feature that wasn't really a feature but almost a flaw, but it ended up really helping trick development. That was the starburst response that was on the inside of this yo-yo. Over a lot of time in use, the starburst would start to wear out little by little. And as the starburst response wore out, it means that the yo-yo started getting slightly unresponsive. People started to realize that as the yo-yo became more unresponsive, you could start doing certain kind of tricks that, while on a more responsive yo-yo would snag, all of a sudden these motions would cause no snagging. And this was like a big thing for yo-yoing because, obviously, if you have a more smooth flowing yo-yo, you could start moving the yo-yo in directions that you couldn't move them before. The Renegade definitely has an important place in the yo-yo scene, and it's safe to say that without the Renegade, we might not have seen really advanced trick advancement within the 1A style. Moving on into number 8 on our list, we're gonna go a little bit more modern here to a yo-yo that was released in 2009. We're gonna look at the Japan technology kamui. So off-string is a style that definitely has gone through a couple phases through its lifetime. And at this point, most off-string yo-yos had a rubber rim, and that was just kind of the standard. You had the Aquarius, you had the Hayabusa, and most other off-string yo-yos at the time, yeah, they had like this plastic body with a rubber rim. Japan Technology was a company that decided they wanted to push the boundaries of what could be done with an off-string yo-yo design, and they decided to create an off-string yo-yo that was made out of Delrin. Now at this point, Delrin wasn't a new material to yo-yoing. We had seen it a lot in 1A yo-yos, but this was the first time we had ever seen Delrin used in an off-string yo-yo. This is crazy for us to think about today because almost every off-string yo-yo that's being released is actually made out of Delrin. But at the time, Delrin was pretty much exclusively a 1A only material, and a lot of people didn't realize just how durable Delrin can be. The kamui had a couple things going against it. Number one was the Delrin. People didn't know if that was going to be durable enough to support an off-string yo-yo with all the drops. And two was price. At this point, most off-string yo-yos kind of stayed around the $30 mark and under, whereas the kamui was a yo-yo that was 50 plus, 60 plus, so people were thinking, that's kind of a lot for an off-string yo-yo that's going to be dropped and damaged. Do I really want to invest this much money into this off-string yo-yo that we don't even know is gonna work out for a long time? Thankfully, Japan Technology continued with the kamui yo-yo, and they had a lot of really powerful, like big off-string players using it. You had Tsubasa Onishi, you had Atsushi Yamada, you had Futoshi Murayama. All these big names were people that were using this yo-yo and absolutely killing it with it in contest. Over time, people start realizing just how awesome the kamui was and the fact that, hey, Delrin is a durable material and can withstand drop after drop after drop and off string. So soon other companies like C3, Yo-Yo Recreation, and others began taking up Delrin as a possible material for their off-string yo-yos, and it just exploded. Because Delrin was a material that was durable. When you drop your yo-yo wouldn't fly away because it was rubber. You could actually recatch it because it would bounce really well. Really, like, this was the best possible shift for off-string yo-yo that could have ever happened. Coming around to lucky number 7 on our list, we have an awesome yo-yo. It is the yoyofactory 888. Or 888. 888? Yeah. So prior to the yoyofactory 888, most metal yo-yos that were released in pretty small quantities. They were considered sort of exclusive. They wouldn't be like big releases in multiple yo-yo stores. Maybe like 1 or 2 stores would get like a small quantity of these yo-yos. They'd release out a little bit, and then after that, it was just done for. You'd have to wait for another release. Yo-Yo Factory was having a big shift around this time where they were really trying to produce in larger numbers and create a really premium yo-yo that would have a lot of hype behind it, that would get a lot of notoriety from everyone in the community, and would have big names using the yo-yo and promoting the yo-yo. This is where the 888 came into play. The 888 was one of the first yo-yos that was a premium metal that really was available everywhere. It didn't matter which country or which yo-yo store you were buying from, there was a pretty good chance that the store that you were looking at would get the 888 as an option. Really, the hype for the 888 was huge. You had players like Yuki Spencer, Augie Fash, Jason Lee. The big names of the community at the time were all using the 888. Really, Yuki Spencer was showing just how contest ready the 888 could be, and a lot of people really wanted to pick up one of these for themselves because of it. The 888 also had hub stacks, and really this is not the first time hub stacks had ever been used. You actually had companies like Any Happy Yo-Yo and Takuto out of China. They had been using hub stacks before, but Yo-Yo Factory was one of the first companies to really push a effective hub stack design that was effective but also really durable. While Yo-Yo Factory also had hub stacks in the prior release of their G5, it really took off with the 888, and this was just kind of a complete package yo-yo that played really well and had the added benefit of the hub stacks if you want to give it a try. And throughout the history of modern yo-yoing, the 888 has had so many different variants. You had the 888, you had the 08 888, you had the 888X, you had like the titanium 888. There's been so many different variations of this yo-yo through the years, it's like you can't even count them. There's been different signature series for different players, and really like the reason why this yo-yo had so much hype was just really effective marketing, really effective hype with a really good yo-yo. Jumping into number 6 on our list, we have another very special yo-yo. This one going back into the years of the early 2000s, and we're going to talk about the original Duncan freehand. So the original Duncan freehand was a yo-yo that was created much with the influence of professional yo-yoer Steve Brown. Steve Brown, of course, being the inventor of the 5A yo-yo style, this yo-yo was built to be a 5A yo-yo. But despite the fact that this yo-yo was technically developed for the 5A yo-yo style, it ended up really taking off with a lot of 1A players too. The freehand was very different for its time. It had kind of a floaty feel, it was a little bit oversized, and a lot of people realized that as those friction stickers start to wear down a little bit, you start being able to have a really kind of nice, smooth action with the yo-yo that even knocked players off of using the Renegade. The freehand really exploded towards the end of 2000 into 2001, and pretty much it's the reason why we have a lot of modern yo-yo tricks today. Really influential players like Jason Lee were exclusively using the freehand, and many other trick innovators like Paul Escolar. This was just the yo-yo of choice. And of course, thanks to Duncan being a huge company, distribution of the freehand just spread like wildfire. Of course, the freehand also had many other iterations through the years. It ended up just being a name that kind of stuck with the community as you move forward into like the freehand 2, the hyper freehand, the freehand 0, and all the other like newer, more modern freehands that we have today. All of this just started from the original Duncan freehand, and that was the big influential of the yo-yo at the time, and really was just the reason why everything kind of spread onward. We're now moving into our top 5 yo-yos on this list, and we're starting off number 5 with a very special yo-yo out of Japan, and that yo-yo is the Yo-Yo Recreation Sleipnir. So the Sleipnir was a very special yo-yo for its time because it was one of the first yo-yos that was really developed as a metal yo-yo for modern contest play. The Sleipnir was light, it had a very sharp kind of angle to it and very low walls, and not many yo-yos were really being built like this at the time, but it ended up setting a standard for a lot of contest-inspired yo-yos through the years following. The Yo-Yo Recreation Contest team at this time was really showing what could be done with the Sleipnir, and the Sleipnir ended up going on to help win the 2009 World Yo-Yo Contest with Shin Yakido. The Sleipnir was fast, it was smooth, and really it was just pure contest energy all inside this Japan-produced metal yo-yo, and it was a very good yo-yo at that. Yo-Yo Recreation went on to producing lots of other yo-yos, and a lot of them had sort of a similar vibe to the Sleipnir. They had that same kind of shape, that same kind of lightness to them. And many other companies kind of followed suit with this, and that's why you'll see a lot of similar looking yo-yos, especially the couple years after, and even into yo-yos of today. We're gonna jump right into number 4 on our list, and we're actually gonna continue this trend of yo-yo recreation, and now we're gonna talk about the Yo-Yo Recreation Dropner. So the hype for the Yo-Yo Recreation Dropner was very, very real. And for good reason. Yo-Yo Recreation had been teasing this yo-yo quite a bit, and there were a lot of big names that started using the Dropner once it was released. The Dropner was very different compared to other yo-yos of this time, largely because it was a bimetal, but it was one of the first bimetals we ever saw that was designed with a very specific purpose. Up to this point, a lot of bimetals sort of were considered gimmicky. They really didn't have a bimetal placement for that extra ring that benefited the yo-yo in a big way. There wasn't a lot of like ingenuity to really push what could be done with the yo-yo with that bimetal design up to this point. Yo-Yo Recreation took the outer ring bimetal and really made it something that could play very, very contest oriented and had a clear purpose in mind. It was super light, it was super fast, and this was what was needed in competition yo-yoing at the time. The Dropner was a little bit difficult to get, especially if you lived in the United States, but people found ways to get it, and especially in the Asian scene, a lot of people picked up on the Dropner and began using it for their advantage. And with the Yo-Yo Recreation Contest team really pushing the hype for this yo-yo, the Dropner's popularity definitely grew, and it really, as the years went on, you started seeing a lot of companies follow suit of the Dropner and do that same kind of outer ring, light bimetal design. And even yo-yos that are produced today often will try to follow that same kind of concept. Number 3 on our list is going to go back to another style of yo-yoing, to the offstring 4A style of yo-yoing, and this time we're going to talk about the Yo-Yo Jam Aquarius. So early on, while offstring was still a pretty new style, you really didn't have a lot of options for yo-yos at this point. Really, you had things like the Henry's Viper, and at the time Yo-Yo Jam had been developing some other kind of interesting concept offstring yo-yos, but we didn't have a really solid offstring option yet. There wasn't something that was just a little strange or was specifically a mod that you had to do. Yo-Yo Jam decided to develop a new kind of offstring yo-yo with the help of Hironori Mi, who was one of the big names in offstring at the time. The Yo-Yo Jam Aquarius was wider, it had a gap that was a little bit tailored for offstring style. It was just a very durable yo-yo as well. It had these rubber rims on the outside with a durable plastic body, but it really just had something different than the other options that offstring yo-yos had at the time. The Aquarius ended up exploding in popularity, and pretty much for quite a few years, every yo-yoer was using an Aquarius for offstring. Countless titles had been won using the Aquarius. You had world champions, national champions, regional champions, everything in between. Safe to say that for many years, the Yo-Yo Jam Aquarius was the yo-yo that everyone was using. And for good reason. This yo-yo was just totally different, and it was definitely one of the big reasons why offstring as a style started getting just higher levels of tricks. Coming to number 2 on our list, we're gonna go over into the United States. We're going to one-drop yo-yos, and we're going to talk about the M1. So prior to the release of the M1 in 2008, most metal yo-yos had a kind of higher price tag. It's safe to say that it was very difficult to find any sort of metal yo-yo that was under around $80. Most metal yo-yos at this time were hitting that $100 level. This is weird to think about in terms of today, because a lot of metal yo-yos that come out nowadays, you can even find them in like the $25, $35 range, and that's just kind of considered normal. But back then, this was very, very rare to see, and to find a metal yo-yo that was under the $100 mark was kind of pretty rare. One Drop decided at this time that they wanted to do something different. They wanted to produce a metal yo-yo that was cost effective, and no other company at this point had really strived to do something like this. This was especially interesting because the One Drop M1 was completely produced and machined in the United States. Nowadays you can find cheaper metal yo-yos that are produced in China, and this is very easy to do, but at the time, to make it happen in the US was something that was very, very rare. The One Drop M1 ended up being the cheapest metal option, coming in at just about $60. This was making metal yo-yos accessible for pretty much everyone. And really following the production of the M1, other yo-yo companies began kind of taking influence from that and trying to find ways to produce metal yo-yos at a cheaper, more cost-effective value as well. Which now brings us all the way to number 1. We have had quite the journey. We've gone through metal yo-yos, we've gone through plastic yo-yos, we've gone through offstring yo-yos, we've gone through 1A yo-yos, and really now we're going to be talking about a yo-yo that has one of the biggest influences in all of modern yo-yo competition. When I started making this video, I knew that this yo-yo had to be somewhere in the list, and really as I started going through the different options, I realized there was no other place this yo-yo could be than number 1. Literally no other yo-yo has had this much of an influence on competition with this huge spread of modern competition. This yo-yo is just kind of untouchable. There's no other yo-yo that even comes close to what this yo-yo is. So here we are at number 1. We're going to talk about the Yomega Raider / Fireball. So this might be a huge shock to you. Why would I choose the Yomega Raider or Fireball as the number 1 yo-yo for this list out of every yo-yo in modern competition history? And the reason for this is because of the influence that this yo-yo has had in the 2A style of yo-yoing. Early on, when the kind of boom of yo-yoing was starting, late 97 into 98, players were starting to figure out that there were ways that they can modify the Yomega Raider / Fireball, because they both have the same body, just different kind of axle systems, to be really effective with two-handed yo-yoing, or 2A yo-yoing. The Yomega Raider and Fireball mod ended up becoming the standard for all 2A players at the time, which is very interesting because the mod was essentially taking your yo-yos and breaking them. But by cranking the gaps of these yo-yos, sanding down the spacers or squashing the spacers, we were able to figure out that this yo-yo was just a powerhouse of two-way yo-yoing. It had the speed, it had the perfect response, it was smooth, the body of the yo-yo was perfectly shaped to be comfortable and really lent itself to being able to loop really effectively. Really, the two-way mod of the Raider and Fireball was just really phenomenal for the style and helped push the style forward into many, many years to come. The Raider and Fireball mod pretty much has won more titles than any other yo-yo you can think of in the two-way style. Really, when you consider even all the other styles, 5A, 4A, 3A, they all have different yo-yos that they've won many titles, but the Omega Raider and Fireball still remains on top with how many titles of world champions, national champions, regional, state, every contest, Asia Pacific champions, European champions have all used this yo-yo for many, many years. And beyond just the influence of people using the yo-yo, you also have a lot of yo-yos that came out following the Raider and Fireball mod that share the same body style. They have similar guts inside the yo-yo, and really even today's modern two-way yo-yos are essentially trying to create the feel of what the really good Raider and Fireball mod was. You can look at any modern two-way yo-yo and you can see that influence. You can see the shape of the Raider and Fireball. You can see the guts of the Raider and Fireball. You could see the gap system and how they were trying to manufacture designs that you didn't have to break but could get the same kind of play of this broken Raider and Fireball. And there's a reason why this technology hasn't changed very much at all in the last 20 years. And that's because the Raider and Fireball mod was just so good. There really wasn't any other yo-yo that could touch that yo-yo's play and that yo-yo's feel. I know that this decision might be a little bit strange given that obviously in today's modern yo-yo competition world, 1A is kind of the big one that people look at. But it's also important to look at where the other styles kind of had a contribution to modern yo-yoing. And really, when you consider the Raider and Fireball, the history of it, the legacy that it's left is just so vast and so much bigger than really any other yo-yo you can think of. And with that completes the list. So what do you guys think? Do you think that this list was well put together? Would you agree with some of the choices, or maybe would you swap out some of the placings of the choices? Let me know in the comments below what you guys think might be yo-yos that have been missed, or maybe where you would place yo-yos on this different kind of scaled level from 10 to 1 on this list. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video and maybe learned something looking back at this kind of progression through a lot of the influential yo-yos through our modern yo-yo history. And once again, I am Josh Yee from Not Creators. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'll catch you guys later.